Okay, to be the best person in your business, whether you're a real estate agent, whatever your business you're in, you got to have the power of words so they resonate. We've got one of the best experts in Australia, Jonathan Creek. Stay tuned for what he's got to say.
Good morning, guys. Oh, beautiful, Mark. Very nice. We're very, very blessed to have you on this show this morning, Jonathan. You are literally royalty in the journalist world. But I tell you what, we've done some fun training with you over the years with video content. And today we're actually going to pull apart a bit of, for choice of a better word, a bit of word porn. You know, words that people use. Mark said, just say what you want, so I did. But, you know, there's often
what did you just say?
Word porn. That's all right. That's all right, isn't it, Jonathan?
I think that's perfectly fine.
But, okay, it's a funny thing, Jonathan, because in every industry, and I know you've got a journalist background, in every industry, people use jargon that no one else understands except for the industry, and we do it in real estate.
100% real estate agents do it. A lot of people do it. Probably the best example is police. Whenever they're on the television, they speak a completely different language to the common person. Journalists do it. They speak what we call journalese. You know, they get on camera and they speak this completely different language. And then when you meet them in real life, you're like, hold on a minute. The person I see on TV is not you. And my friends say it all the time is, you know, every now and then I'll pop up on one of these old police crime investigation shows, and a bit of my news stories will pop up there. And my friends are like, even my kids are like, who is that person? Like, that's not you. That's not how you talk. And there's a real problem with it, Lisa. And this is the thing. And Mark knows this too. The problem is when you do it, when you turn on the camera and you become someone else and you use words that aren't native to you or natural to you, it creates a barrier, creates a disconnection. Now, if you're in the business of real estate or the business of selling, it's going to make it harder for you to connect. And when it's harder to connect, it's harder to sell and convert. And that's the issue that we should be tackling today.
I agree. So can we just give an example, Jonathan? One thing that I actually don't do it because I like to keep things really simple. I think Luke just mentioned that on here, Luke Maroney. I always say it's got to be, and you know, excuse the choice of words that I'm using, but marketing for idiots. It's almost like when you're marketing, you almost have to do it like you're reading a golden book to a child. What we do in real estate, just to give you guys an example that are watching, is often we'll say we had 20 contracts out, we had 300 people inspect, and the property was sold in 2 weeks. No one except for people in real estate know what that means. Nobody. Nobody knows what that means. Please turn those off.
Yeah, and I think they really have to do it. I mean, in the news world, and I spent 15 years there, we were continuously told that we had to write our stories. And you'd think, we've been to university for 4 years. We've been trained 100 different ways to write stories and get our grammar, on point and all that sort of stuff. And we were taught, once you get into the newsroom, that if your story can't be comprehended by a 12-year-old kid, it's too complicated.
There you go. There you go.
So when you're talking about details and you want to make a fast connection and a connection that's stronger long term, and we're talking, ongoing referrals years down the track. If you want to make a connection that does that, then you have to start speaking at a level that a 12-year-old would understand. Now, most people think, oh, that's dumbing me down. It's devaluing my experience and my knowledge. It's not about you. It's actually about what the customer can take on board and convert into their head and make sense of to help them make the decision that's going to be best for them.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. And people don't have a gauge. And we were just saying off air, if you were opposite a surgeon and he said, I've performed 150 operations this year, you're like, awesome. I don't know, is that good or is that bad? Right? There's no gauge, and it's the same in real estate. When we say 20 contracts went out and 300 people inspected the property, the general public, the people, they don't know, well, hang on, I don't know, is that good or bad? Like, where's the parameters here?
Yeah, and that
So,
comes down to context. So context is,
Hey,
you know, sorry, Mark. Gary Vaynerchuk will say content is king, context is God. So unless people know the frame in which you're communicating to them, the starting point, then if they don't know that starting point, then they have
yeah.
no idea what you're talking about.
So, Jonathan, what would be, from your experience, I guess, if you're trying to resonate saying something, what would be the top 3 tips that you would give someone to say, to really cut through and, make an impact with someone else, whether it be a friend, whether it be someone you're working with, whether it be a customer in any field? What would be like top 3 in your field that you would say, mate, you've got to remember this?
Yeah, I think the top 3 things that, and you've got me on the hop, but I can give you a couple. The first thing I'll tell you to do is if you've got a team of salespeople, if you've got an office like yours where you've got 8 to 10 salespeople, you don't want 8 to 10 the same. I mean, you only have to look at Disney and the way that they make all their content is that they've got 17 different princesses. Right? Now, the reason why they've got 17
I think we do as well. I think we do as well in our family.
That's it. Well,
Lisa's got 17 princesses within her.
Now, you might think that 17 is a weird number, but 17 just happens to be how many different character archetypes there are in human personalities. So what essentially Disney's doing is that there's a princess for everyone. So if you're not connecting with Cinderella, maybe Ariel's your go. Right? And that's how they make sure from a marketing point of view, they get everybody. So what I'd be saying to real estate office owners with teams is don't try and get a crack office of alphas, because all you're going to do is attract alpha buyers as well. So what you need a mixture of characteristics and characters in your team so that you can grab a wider scope of the market, because they all speak different languages. So if you
that's interesting.
I love that.
Yeah, and I'm not talking foreign languages. I'm talking English, human communications. We see it in diversity at the moment, particularly in suburbs and areas that are maybe dominated by overseas buyers. We see them bring in, people of that same culture. I mean, in Melbourne, we get a lot of Chinese. We've got Chinese areas, and they bring in Chinese agents. That's fair enough. But even among those Chinese agents, there's different personality types. So you don't just need one Chinese guy or girl to do all the Chinese buying and selling. You actually need someone who's going to attract all the different archetypes of that. So when people say, how many salespeople should I have in my office? I say, well, ideally 17 would be good, because then you can have one for everyone, because they use.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, Jonathan, like often individually, people try to be all things to all people. Right. And you just can't be. I was having a conversation last night with a girlfriend of mine. She's a real estate agent as well. And she said, what I love is that, you unapologetically say to people, if you don't like what you see on my social channels or our social channels, you can just unfollow. And so I think this is where people do make a dire mistake, is that individually they try to be all things to all people with language and content and things like that. You don't need to be. You can't. It's not possible, right? So that's a really, really interesting point about those 17 princesses. I love that. Point number 2.
Point number 2 is be really aware of how you change when you turn on the camera. So you'll have people who are just relaxed and they're easy, and as soon as they turn on the camera, they become Brian Henderson, the newsreader, right? And that's like, come on. And people can tell whether you're being you or not. There's a really interesting video going around on TikTok at the moment, actually, where a guy has this mirror where you look at yourself directly in the mirror, and he says, smile as if someone's taking your photo, and all these people, they put on these fake smiles. Then he's got this sort of trick mirror where you're sort of looking somewhere, but you're not quite looking at yourself, and then the people naturally smile, and they're way more engaging. Their eyes widen and they lighten up, and it's like, okay, that's the real you, and this before is the fake you. So what we've got to try and do when people pick up the camera, and Lisa, I think you're a good example of it. You've made so many videos now. I'd hate to even try and count that you just turn on the camera and you're you. And in fact, I even said this to Mark the other day. I said, it's going to be really interesting because people don't know, Lisa, you and I have never met face to face. We've engaged a lot over the years, but we've never met face to face. And I said to Mark, it's going to be really interesting when I meet Lisa face to face, whether there's any shift between the on-camera Lisa and the real Lisa. And I don't think there's going to be a massive
pressure's on.
No, there's none. And that's the thing. I mean, you know, when you are unapologetically yourself, when people do meet you, they're like, I feel like I know you already. And that is, to me, the best compliment ever. Jonathan, you know, if I'll go into a sales appraisal, people are like, I really feel like I know you. And I think that's awesome because we're already 90% of the way there. You know, and again, if people don't like what they see, that's okay. Like, but at least you've just been yourself.
So when you walk in a room and that happens to you, how much of an advantage do you think you have?
A lot, a huge amount. Yeah. I can't imagine what it would be to have to.
The connection's built. The
connection's built. And you know, if people don't like you or they don't resonate with you or you didn't get the listing, all you were being was yourself. So it's like, well, I couldn't really be anything else and I couldn't really do any better. And, you know, you walk away going, okay, well, at least I did my best and I was just me. And oddly enough, people really struggle to be that. And I think that's the point you're trying to make.
Yeah, look, and you know what? And that struggle is it's like, it's like an X factor. No one can understand it, explain it, get through it, crash through that barrier. Only you can crash through that barrier yourself. It's very strange. I think the best storytellers in the country are real estate agents, country real estate agents in a bar, because at the bar they can the guy at the bar can crack a good joke. He can talk to all his mates. He can have a great time, but put a live video in front of him at the bar, he'll just freeze. As comfortable as he is in his own skin and as great storyteller as he is, put the camera in front, frozen, weird.
And that gets us to point number 3. You've got to understand why you're changing. You got to understand why that camera makes you become someone else. And it's all born out of fear. Fear of losing the deal, fear of making a mistake on camera and it being there forever, fear of people picking up that maybe you don't know something as well as someone else. So what you got to do is you got to be really comfortable with, you know what, I'm human. I'm not perfect. None of us are. All right. So stop beating yourself up and just back yourself in. Look, if someone doesn't like your sales appraisal, if someone doesn't go with you, then they weren't right for you anyway.
If you didn't have those headphones, you would have been perfect.
Yeah, well, I didn't come in with the headphones on, but then the tech didn't work, so I had to put the headphones in. So
you look like he really looks like a journalist.
I just thought headphones and being able to headphones, yes, detractor, but being able to hear you guys speak an upvote, a bonus.
Sorry, mate, talk it up. Back to 3.
So factor 3 is all about the fear. Understand why you're changing.
Yeah.
Don't be worried that if you lose the sale, if they don't go with you, it's because you didn't connect. Like you weren't one of the 17 princesses that they wanted. You weren't the 117 that they wanted. So there's a connection for everybody. You just got to work out your pocket and then you just niche down on it, and you'll become the go-to referral. And the thing is, when you connect with someone on your level and the way that Facebook groups everyone and social media groups everyone now, they will have about 320 on average, 320 other people who connect to the same personality type.
Wow.
Wow. And they'll open you up to the rest of them. That's the magic of it.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? So how do you train that, Jonathan? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are watching, and I know it's a question I get asked a lot. Like, you know, people say, well, how do I get over that? What do I do to get over that fear? What do I do when I just pick up the camera? How do you know what to talk about? These are questions that, you know, we get asked a lot.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I run a program called Spread Factor, which was all born out of the science and study of viral videos. But actually, 1/3 of that program is focused on what I call establishing brand story clarity. Now, that's not brand story clarity for Novak Properties. That's brand story clarity for Mark Novak. That's brand story clarity for Lisa Novak. Why you two are different. The gift of the resonating language that Lisa should be using versus what you should be using, Mark. You talk to different people in different ways,
Yeah.
even to the point where, if you guys are sitting at a cafe, the two of you, and a friend comes along and sits down at the table, your conversation and the language that you use will change based on who's there with you. And this is what people
Yeah.
have to understand, is that they have to be so clear on their own brand story, on who they are and confident in who they are, that when other people come in the room, they don't influence and change their personality type. Because the moment they do, humans are so instinctive, they can tell that they're putting it on.
Straight away.
That means you're
Straight
not
away.
gonna,
Yeah.
you're not
Within
gonna
seconds.
you're not going to
Seconds.
connect as
Yeah.
quickly. Your connection isn't
Yeah.
going to be strong. Sometimes
Yeah.
you'll go out, you'll go to a party, one of Lisa's 15 birthday parties of the last 15 days, and you'll meet someone you don't know, but you'll connect, and you'll just have this unbelievable connection. You'll have this great night, and you'll wake up the next
Yes.
morning and say, "Man, I really connected with that person. I'm so like I can see me being a friend with them for a long time."
Yeah.
That is because you're on the same level of communicating with words. You're using the same words. There's no gray area of, I'm actually not quite sure what they're talking about right now. I don't know whether $510 per square meter for an office rental is a good price in this area or not. Like, there was no gray area. There was no second guessing. It was just agreement. Now, I'm not saying you're a lapdog and you don't have your own opinions and you're letting all that slide. I'm just saying you're almost on the same
Yeah.
wavelength.
But Jonathan, doesn't that come down to that disc theory? Are you familiar with that disc theory?
Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
disc.
So, and it's funny because I often will struggle with people that are mathematically minded.
That's me.
Let me give you an example. So if I'm sitting opposite, say for instance, I'm appraising to someone who is an accountant. I've got to really tone down my personality because I can be like an excited puppy dog sometimes, and then I've got to really make sure that I just tone things down and start speaking to them a lot more analytically. And I think it's really important.
You mirror them.
You've got to mirror them. So if I'm sitting opposite someone who is very quiet, very factual, wants to talk about figures, I can somewhat struggle with that. That's not part of my personality type. And so I've got to really concentrate on what I'm saying to that person. I've got to tone my personality down. I've got to speak with them in figures as opposed to, social media, etc. So, it's about reading the play as well.
Yeah, I might challenge you on that a little bit. Just because you are a certain personality doesn't mean you don't have a quiet version, doesn't mean you don't have a serious version, doesn't mean you don't have an emotional version, doesn't mean that you don't have a hyper excited version. What you're talking about there is spatial awareness, reading the room, understanding the situation. I mean, I've got two daughters, a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and the 14-year-old is at that stage at the moment where she's a beautiful soul, but she's sort of a little bit, so many things are going on in her life. She's probably a little bit sort of naive in a sense, and she doesn't read the room that well. That's only because she's focused on herself. So what you're talking about, Lisa, is you're focusing on the person in the room with you, which is really important because, there's a guy called Nigel Risner who's a keynote speaker out of the UK, and he always says, if you're going to be in the room, be in the room. And that's what you're doing, Lisa. You're sitting in the room, you're saying, okay, who am I dealing with here? And in a way, you probably don't recognize it, but you are a communicating expert. Like, you do it so well that what you're doing is you're saying, okay, how can I communicate with this person so efficiently that I can just get this done because it's not my ideal scenario. Like, I've got to do the numbers. It's a part of my job. I find it a bit boring. I just want to get out there and show more houses and list more houses. So what you're trying to do there, or what your brain's doing there, it's just efficiency. It's like, I need to communicate with this person in a level that's more comfortable to them because maybe we're different in the scales in terms of how we operate. You're just trying to be more efficient, get it done fast, move
But
out.
you've
So you
got to
can get
read the
back.
play.
Well, that's exactly what you're
Yes,
doing. You're reading the play.
you do need to really read the play. If I'm speaking to a client who's a lot older, and I went and did an appraisal the other day. The lady was in her late 80s. There's no point me sitting there talking about my social media strategy. I'm going to lose her right away. So it's really important that you do read the play, and be careful about how you communicate with those clients.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the
very interesting.
So the language does have to match the client. That is 100%.
Absolutely, it does.
And it's all about
Absolutely, it does.
being an expert. But that doesn't mean changing you. That's just
No,
changing
that's
the
right.
way that
That's
you're
right.
transferring the information.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Jonathan, we could talk all
we
day.
could talk all day, but
I love this stuff.
you're a weapon, and thank you for your valuable time. Hopefully, people that are watching can share this with other friends that may need the tips. Just before we sign out, those top threes. Can we summarize on that? Number one.
I don't know. A freestyle. So number one is understand who you are. Like use the language that connects with the person that you're with.
Just make it up if you don't know. If you don't know number 1, 2, or 3, just make it up.
Yes, that'll speed up your connection and it'll make the connection stronger. Second, understand why you change on camera. That's 2. Yeah, understand why you change on camera. What is it that you're scared of? Be really open with yourself. When I was a journalist training, I used to stand in the mirror and practice my live crosses and speaking to the camera over and over and over again. And when you're trying to be someone else, and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, it's really awkward.
Yeah.
You can't do it. People hate hearing their own voice. The reason why they hate hearing their own voice is because genetically, we're not meant to actually ever hear our own voice. But secondly,
that's interesting. That's really interesting.
They don't like who they sound like because it's not them, which makes it even harder to listen to. They go,
wow.
Oh, right? That's number 2.
Wow.
Now, Mark, what was number 3?
Fear.
No, fear was 2. Number 3?
Reading the play.
Read the room. Adjust to the room. Adjust to the person you're speaking to. Don't change yourself, but change your approach.
I love that.
Unreal. I'm going to be working out all day today which one of the 17 princesses I am. I'm going to go through all of them today, Jonathan. I'm going to work it out. I think I could be all of them.
I reckon Lisa's a perfect blend of all 17 princesses.
I've certainly had enough birthdays for 17 of them, that's for sure.
Can I make
what princess are you? What princess are you?
I don't go in the princess realm, Mark. I go in the in the hero realm. But I'm a bit more Boba Fett than Luke Skywalker. Let's say that. And anyone who's a Star Wars fan will realize that these are Boba Fett Star Wars headphones. So. But Mark, can I say one thing? I think I understand why Lisa doesn't like mathematically minded people. Do you know what? They can add up the bills. They can add up the credit cards.
What is that?
Surely that's too many zeros. That can't be right.
That's right. You should see me. Oh, anyway, look, that's a conversation for another day. But yes, maths and Lisa do not go well together. And it's funny that, of course, I'm work in an industry where I've got to be using it all the time, calculating commissions and also, marketing expenditure and all that sort of stuff. I don't mind it, but definitely I'm more creative minded. That is for sure. Everyone's one way or the other, right? Everybody is. Everyone is. When are we going to get you up to Sydney, Jonathan?
Less than a week.
Stop. Is it? True? Is it? I didn't know you were all...
Next Thursday.
Oh, my God. I'm excited. Unreal.
Picking him up from the airport.
Cannot wait. Cannot wait. We're going to document some of that, guys. Won't give it all away. Jonathan, give yourself a bit of a plug as well, because you're a hard person to find. If people are looking for where they can get help with how to even just get started with video content, you're the person. You are the person.
It's just communication. You train communication, and I find it's not only video either. It's just full stop communication. you've cut through a lot of stuff, and you can give people the shortcuts. So
Yeah.
definitely, this is a hired gun, ladies and gentlemen. If you are Jonathan Creek, look him up on Facebook, follow what he does. You're amazing, and
Unbelievable.
people can hire you for a lot of money, so much money.
Virable.com, virable.com.
There you go, guys. That's it. That's it. Jonathan, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. Cannot wait to meet you in person. I'm surprised. I feel like we've met in person a million times.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's exactly what
How-
we're talking about today, right? We're connected. We've
Yep.
got an
It's
understanding connection already, and we've never met.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got friends all around the world like this, and that's the power of
Yep.
social media. And as Mark says,
It
it's not
is.
just about video. Viral videos gave me the start and the understanding, but it really is about how people can connect in all forms. And
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and you need to be connecting in all forms, not just one way
You
or
do.
another.
Absolutely.
Thank
Mate,
you, Jonathan.
Take care.
See ya.
See you later.
See you next Thursday.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.